learnphoto.info. I want to talk about high contrast scenes today and camera RAW files versus JPEG. I shoot both in camera. Most cameras these days allow you to shoot both a RAW file and a JPEG. Here we have this raven in the snow. The exposure's pretty good on the raven. It's actually quite good, and the snow is blown out. We've lost detail in the snow, and that's just a function of our camera not being able to cope with the same contrast range as our eye. Really, the camera does, as you'll see in this tutorial, deal with it, but we have to take a couple extra steps to take advantage of all that data captured in this RAW file. So this, I thought, would be a good image to illustrate that point. And what I've done here is I've already opened the JPEG portion, the two files, and the JPEG file I have in Photoshop here. And you can see the problem again. We have blown highlights. This JPEG files have in-camera processing. So let's see if we can cope with that. I'm going to go to curves here, and you'll notice this graphical representation in curves is actually representing the tonal values within this frame. So if I take my eyedropper, here's where the blacks are. So if I were to click on a black, let's say, you'll notice it's over here where the blacks reside. And if I click on a white, you notice it's way over here where the whites reside. You can see it on the scale here. So this is where we have concern with the lost detail in the snow. And so we're going to try to take that point, which is right there on the graph, and bring it down. Now it's so close to the end. Normally this curve would bend, but it's so close to the end, it's just pulling the end point down. It's all this white here. Again, if we sample from somewhere in the snow, that's where the point is so close to the end, the whole end comes down. So what we're doing is we're getting some tonal value in the snow, but we're really just discarding more information out of this frame, and we're not getting the detail we'd like to see within the snow, but we are getting some tone in the snow. So somewhat limited. Now you can play with other parts of the photo. You see how that curve bends, and it's bringing the background down, blur down, and maybe pull these whites a little more. There, I was able to get a little bit more detail in the snow. And so this is acceptable and works for a lot of people. And when you're in a hurry, and if you're going to put this on the web or something, it's probably all you need right there with the JPEG. You'll see that we've lost some contrast in the background and the bird. You can deal with that by going here and going to my history palette. If you went to window history and click there, that would get you there as well. I use this so much that here's where we started. I'm going to put my little history brush in that square, and here's where our curves adjustment to get some tone in the snow. But you can see the difference there between this nice rich contrast in the raven and a better background to this. So now we go over here and we grab the corresponding tool, which is the history brush here, and we're going to click on that. Now you'll see that I can simply paint this back. I'm going to just do this fast for purpose of illustration. You'll see it on the background more probably in that black area, but see there, I blew out the snow again a little bit. But now, once you've done that, you also have the ability to fade the last thing you did. So you can come here to your edit menu. There's Shift Command F or click here, and you can actually fade that last operation, which was bringing tone back here. And so hopefully you can see that. But anyways, that's how you deal with a JPEG file. That's great and all. Apologies, my fan is coming on my computer here. That's the background hum you're hearing. So let's see how we would deal with that with a RAW file and if it's any better. So with a RAW file selected in Photo Mechanic, I'm going to shift Command E, and that'll open that RAW file in Photoshop. First, it opens in Camera Raw, which is a plug-in extension to Photoshop. And this is where we can manipulate that raw data. And you'll see if I push this down. Let's go a whole stop. There's a one stop reduction in exposure, and now we see better tonal value here in the snow. It looks great. We've also moved everything down. The raven's darker, and so is the background. Background I'm fine with. The raven I would like to have. I don't want these blacks plugging up. So we'll show you how to deal with that. Let's open this file and make a comparison. And here is, see if we can get this a little larger for you to see better. There's our raw file where we've adjusted for the snow. There's the JPEG, more flat, not as appealing. So now I could just select the bird and lighten it up and be done, call it done. I'll show you another trick I like to do, which is to open this a second time, Command E again. Again, we're in Camera Raw, and it's retained the setting of -1. Let's put it right back to where it was, zero that back out, if I can get there. There we go, and open it again. Now these two images sit side by side. This is the one where we adjusted for the snow. This is the one where we did not. Let's select all on that one, the lighter version, and Command C to copy. Command A was to select all. Command C to copy. Move over to this darker version. Command V to paste. Now, if you look at our layers, we have the light version over the dark version. And if I turn off the light version, you'll see the dark version under there. So what I'm going to do is take my eraser tool over here in Photoshop, and I'm going to just erase away a portion of this top layer to reveal what I want that lies below, which is that nice snow. So here we go, and now you'll see I can have my cake and eat it too. I can have the nice rich blacks and detail in the snow, utilizing a Camera Raw file, doing this rather quickly, just inch speed. And you're also able to use that fade of your last operation. So if you needed to fine tune it, you could fine tune it wholesale here, just to get it where you like it. I kind of like most of it. I liked it how we set it up in Camera Raw, so that's good. Say okay to that. Just for fun, let's bring the background down. I think it'll look better that way. I'm doing this quickly, so normally I try not to get too close to the bird. Or put a selection around the raven so that I'm not spilling onto the raven when I'm using it. So again, I could fade that, but this is a quick and dirty method of getting that photo looking the way I like, and I think that looks actually rather nice. Just like that. Give you a good look at it. But we've got a good tonal range from black to white without losing detail in those whites. So that's the lesson, using RAW versus JPEG to get a better final result. So how does this all work, and why did we end up with, if you look at these frames, you'll notice, here's this frame, and let's look at our settings. This is at ISO 250, f11, 3/20th of a second. I'm in aperture priority, and there's no exposure compensation. I did not set any exposure compensation manually. So let's just move over now to the next frame, which is, you'll notice if you look at them side by side that this has much darker snow, and this frame was taken just 5 seconds after. It's an ugly picture, but this is 146, the one prior 145:55, 5 seconds later. So why did this particular, why did the camera in aperture priority assign 1/320th of a second to this photo? And why on the next one did that jump to 1600 of a second. So the camera's in-camera metering is called a reflective meter, and it's reading the values that reflect off the subject back to the camera. So when you have extreme conditions like this, black versus white, both of these things can skew that exposure basically by the camera's calibrated to assume that every scene averages out to middle gray or thereabouts. And most scenes do this great, and the meters work awesome, and exposures are usually not something we worry about as much as we used to in the film days. However, in an extreme circumstance like this, a predominance of black or a predominance of white can skew that exposure one way or the other, because the camera again is assuming everything averages out to middle gray. Let's just to show you what I'm talking about here for a second. See if I can, oops, that one. 18% gray is in the middle. There's an assumption that most scenes have blacks, whites, and midtones, and those average out basically to a middle gray tone. Right in that area. Looks like I messed that up. Anyways, this spot. So the camera's trying to it's making an assumption that everything should average to there. So when we get more of the snow in the frame, it's shifting the exposure to underexposure. It's trying to make it's trying to make this scene average to middle gray, and we've got a predominance of white in it, so it makes that white underexposed. This here about a half stop or to a full stop, and it just it makes this white snow look gray. Well, we don't want that. And in this case, the center weighted portion of the frame probably screwed a little to the overexposure side, maybe just a third or so, but I think it looks real nice on these blacks and stuff. However, we're not capturing the full range of both the whites and the blacks. So we showed you the tricks to fix that with a raw file. I think it works better in these extreme conditions. In most conditions, the JPEG will be just fine for you. But I love having that digital raw file to work with. And so I hope that helps you understand what's going on with your camera and how to process these photos when you've got a nice picture but challenging light or scene conditions. Thanks for watching. It's Michael with LearnPhoto.info. Get out there, have some fun, and have a great day.